We're staying with President Kenyatta's visit to the U.S. Dr. Francis Onditi, an international relations expert, says it is typical of a Republican government to have a weak agenda when it comes to Africa. Let's listen to what else he had to say on U.S. Africa relations.
It is normal, I mean, for the Republican, a regime to behave in this manner. It's not very common for them. You remember when Donald Trump was campaigning, he was looking domestic, inward-looking policy, as opposed to, really solidifying, African policy. So it's very common, but there are quite a number of developments that might compel the U.S. White House to start rethinking about their foreign policy to Africa. One of them, obviously, is the trade competition that we continue to see with China, but also their interest to protect their citizens in Africa, in the Horn of Africa. So, and the fight against terrorism, in Africa, whether it's in West Africa, East Africa, or in Central Africa. So we're combining these two pillars, the peace and security, economic pillar. When you put them together, it is almost inevitable that we are likely to see Donald Trump and any other leader in White House focusing on Africa in years to come. Many African countries are developing what we call, a balanced kind of, diplomatic relations, especially in these times when we've got China getting into the global system very strongly. For example, Kenya, for a long time, we've been having, this what you could not call a neutral policy, but kind of a balanced act. So yes, we are likely to see the U.S., of course, feeling competed or out-competed by China. So that perhaps is what will compel the two powers, to put their acts together and find opportunities in Africa. But I find maybe China might be a little bit more attractive because of their pragmatic approach to African foreign policy as compared to the U.S., which has taken, actually we would say it has taken longer for White House to recognize that Africa is actually an opportunity for them to invest. But African countries will continue to play the act of balance, particularly Kenya, because of the interest of U.S. in the Horn of Africa, but also the development of infrastructure that have been shown by the pragmatic development initiative. We've seen a growth in trade between Kenya and the U.S. Now we are talking about a balance of just 115 million. That means that Kenya and the U.S. is actually playing a favorable trade. But I would say this, beyond the trade, the infrastructure that China does within the FOCAC, within the Forum for Africa, China-Africa, framework, it seems to be a little bit more attractive. And therefore, we are likely to see more and more projects that are leaning towards the East as opposed to the West. AGOA is an alternative, but it's seemingly many countries seem not to have understood exactly how the AGOA framework may assist them. Yeah, Kenya is obviously one of the rapidly growing economy on the continent in sub-Saharan Africa. So any gain that would come either from the US or from China would definitely benefit Kenya more. But the visit of President Uhuru Kenyatta, I think because Kenya is a pillar, the strategic location of Kenya in the Horn of Africa being the best for the operation in AMISOM, that the U.S. has really invested in AMISOM in Somalia. So Kenya remains the focal point for the U.S. in the region, in fact, in sub-Saharan Africa.